It is January the 15th, 2025, and it is 5:25 a.m. 5:28? 5:28 a.m. Sorry, I couldn't see. I've been up for a little bit, about an hour, kind of going through some of my content. And everything. Just to see what I want to, what I want to rid myself of, or do I want to keep that, or do I want to, the whole nine. I can't really go into the design platform that I'm used to going into because, it's been purchased by some people that are involved, clearly, in, tracking my work and targeting my life. So, I can use the design platform, just know that I know that. And, just simple doing your research and just knowing, what's going on and putting two and two together or whatever the case is. And also just seeing people, like every time I would design something, I noticed that I'm designing something and it looks good. And then all of a sudden I would see it just pop up out of nowhere. And I'm like, that's interesting. That same concept, I just came up with that. It took me a minute to understand that there were people kind of like literally hacking into my shit and stealing my concepts so that they could embellish their own. It took me a minute to figure that out because I just, thought about it like, well, everybody, I'm not the only person that can think creatively, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't have design platforms to make it more convenient for creatives to create. So that's where I was coming from. I wasn't really looking too deep into it, to the point where it would be like on a borderline conspiracy level, or some type of a RICO situation or some type of, I wasn't looking into it that way because I'm like, why would somebody even be worried about me to that extent? Like for me, I'm just like, I stay to myself so much, so I don't necessarily look at shit in that sense, But I had to realize also that, like I had said on one of my posts, it really is, it was just a short clip to promote my video. And I think what I had said was, it really is my truth that is the threat. It's not the words or my actions. It's the truth that I represent that's the threat. If I were, not speaking up, and like I pretty much haven't been speaking up for so many years, like decades at this point, had I not been speaking up but still present, they would still be just sabotaging me. And it would have been a lot worse than it has been, or that a lot worse than it is. The only thing that's making it a little bit lighter as far as the situation is, number one, who I am, and number two, what I know. And three, the fact that I am speaking up about certain things that do need to stop, because at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, all right, now, that's enough. Whatever karma somebody's needed, they need their payback. They've already gotten it. I was already going through things like this. Like I said, we lost our house in 2018, October of 2018. And I went to Sacramento to find work, could not find work. I started applying all over California. I got a job interview in LA. My children were on, I was going to say spring break, but no, it was Christmas break. So we had the time to, take a vacation and, pretty much treat a trip to LA like a vacation for my kids, because they wouldn't be missing school with me going up there for the interview. Okay, so me and my kids were already going through something before I got to LA. It just made it worse with people, trying to contribute to us not having stability. So having to go into the shelter system, having to rely on, public assistance instead of working, um, just all kinds of things. And then, as I'm looking back on it, realizing that, it was a collective effort to keep me and my children impoverished, because we're more vulnerable when we're impoverished. If we're in our own home, then it's like, okay, well, now you got to worry about trespassing. You got to do this, you got to do that. If you break in somebody's house and they, do harm to you, then, that's a whole other situation you've got to, deal with. But if somebody is vulnerable and they're just out in the elements, or they're in a shelter, or they're staying with someone, or whatever the case is, then it makes it a little bit more convenient for someone who's targeting someone to gain access to that person. So that's one of the reasons why, the core agencies here that help place you in shelters and help you with temporary assistance for housing solutions and things like that. That's one of the reasons why they have overlooked me throughout this entire process. That's one of the reasons why they have, they go through the motions with me, but they don't help me at all. And they know that I know that they're a part of it. And because I've told them to their faces that I know that you all are a part of it, and I know that you all are aware of what it is that I'm going through and, what's actually happening right now. And I'm letting you guys know that it's not okay, but at the same time, they are being told that they're helping by not helping me. They're being told that, by them looking over my application, or by them not placing me in a facility or something like that, that's actually helping because somebody's trying to kill this person and we need you to protect this person and this and that. That's not the case. And we know that. What we're looking at is, a group of people who feel like they need to contribute to keeping me and my family impoverished and separated, so that they can then gain access illegally to us and then possibly sell us off for our energy. Okay, and so that's what we're dealing with. And I've been speaking on this for a while behind the scene. I think that maybe what it's been has been a situation where somebody has inserted themselves into my life, and they work in secret, they work in secret while they're stealing my content. And they're doing the whole sound engineering, editing thing. And in the meantime, in between time, people are gaining access to where I am. So because they're listening to private recordings, they're listening to private videos out of my phone. It's just like, why don't you just wait until I post the stuff and then create your narrative if you're going to do it? But instead of doing that, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to create this narrative so that, we can pretty much set her up, but we got the receipts. We know what was really said. So if, she don't want to listen to us, then, we'll end up putting out the real version. It's like, well, you don't even have to do that because I'm keeping track of everything anyway. You don't have to do that. Like I talked about this before, having an effective tracking system is very important for all of your content. If you're going to, even if you don't script before, then try to do your best to script after, so that you can remember what's been said and whatever the case is, and then file it away somewhere so that you have your own private filings for everything that you've put out. And if you need to revert back to that or refer back to it at some point, then you have the tools to do so. It's just about properly organizing back of house, and making sure that you got your shit in order if you need to pull a receipt or two, I'm pretty sure a lot of people in media could agree with that, especially like, people who are like big time in media. Oh, trust and believe they have a few assistants that take care of that. Okay, executive assistants are probably the ones who are responsible for doing that. You know, you have to keep track of our content. You have to keep track of what we're doing, you know, because everything matters down to the credits, you know, who was mentioned during this interview, you know, what sponsors are attached to this particular episode or whatever the case is. Like, those are things that need to be kept track of. You need to keep track of that type of stuff, you know. And I'm old school, so I believe in having access to hard copies. I don't necessarily believe in just letting shit just be on the internet, because we all know that the internet can be and is heavily manipulated. You know, I'm living proof of that right now. Okay. So anyway, you know, so that's what's happening, you guys. So when people are like, you could just go find employment, you could just go, you need to just look for a job. It's like, no, I'm not being lazy at all. You know, I've pretty much exhausted every option that I have here, which is why I've been trying to leave, because I'm like, no, I need to get to where I can make money. I need to be able to make a living so I can see about myself. When I got here, I immediately started working. I immediately found myself an apartment. There was no interruptions, no stagnation, none of that. That's how I knew that there was a situation that was attached to what happened to me in LA, and also possibly what had happened to me back when I lost my house. There was something that was following me, and that's why at this point, when people are trying to tell me that, you know, it's your family and it's your ex that's doing this, I believe them. I believe them 100%. I believe that it is my ex that's pulling some shit and has been pulling some shit, because he's just spiteful like that. I believe that it does have something to do with my family, because I do have spiteful people in my family who have always had just a tinge of jealousy towards me. For whatever reason, I do not know, but they've always kind of been a certain kind of way with me. You know, so to learn that initially, wow, you've got a family unit that, you know, has really done you hella fucking dirty. And that's probably initially why people felt like, nah, you know what? We gonna stand up for this lady, because this lady, she didn't deserve that shit. She's a good person. When people started to really, you know, look into who I was and or who I am, you know, like, she's a good person. Why the fuck are these people doing this to her? You know, and then finding out about certain things. And, you know, like I said, I don't really want to talk too much about what ended up happening with me and my mother and stuff like that, but I'm hinting about it because it is necessary, just so that people understand the context in which I speak when I say certain things, you know. But back when there were only, you know, the VHS cameras and, you know, them big ass camcorders and stuff like that, and or, you know, spyware was still, you know, something that you had to go to a special store to get to. You couldn't order it on Amazon. You know, like, it was back in the 90s, back in those days, where you literally had to be a certified investigator, or you had to have credentials in order to have access to those hidden cameras and things like that. They weren't as accessible as they are now. And back in those days, that's when a lot of the stuff, the spying on me and my mother, and, you know, putting cameras in our home and finding random cameras in plants and shit like that, that's where that shit came from. It just evolved from there, you know. And then eventually, you know, people knew. I think people did think I was just kind of like, you know, kind of fugazi or whatever, because I have a sense of humor. I'm like, no, I have a sense of humor. I'm not stupid. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I can make light of certain things, but I ain't goofy. You feel what I'm saying? Like, on some real shit, you know? So I think people have learned that by, you know, hacking into my emails and stealing certain things. In particular, I can say off top, like, you know, a list of, you know, satellites. You know, it's like, who the fuck does research on satellites? You know, and I'm like, well, I do. And every time I'm working on the project, all of a sudden, now here goes my email going down. Here goes my files going missing, and this and that. Now all of a sudden we have drones and stuff. We have this, we have that. Now it's access. And so you're basically using me as a battery in your back to improve the quality of your project being me. All right. So if we want to talk about the 1984 situation, we can. And we can also talk about my position in that, but at the same time, I don't really think it's necessary. I think that people already know enough. I think that people, they already know why you guys are coming after me. They also know why you guys are bothering me, have been stalking and harassing me. They also know why, for some reason, you all feel like you're superior to me and I'm supposed to be inferior to you. I don't know where the fuck that came from. But that's clearly something that's being discussed, and there's a certain authority that is trying to force me into a position where I would submit to something that I don't even know anything about. Fucking with my family and all that kind of shit, and putting everybody in a really bad situation. That's pretty much what's been happening here. So, and everybody knows about it. That's the thing. Everybody's aware of it. That's why I'm like, well, I don't mind speaking my part because everybody is aware of it. Everyone. And then, even down to the smallest detail of, people in authoritative positions, instructing people in silence using code words and, code talk, ironically, to instruct people to assault me, instruct people to set me up in certain kind of ways, in some cases, me and my children, so it's a really cruel situation to be a part of. But I do, just kind of to circle it all the way back, I do see, my, I can see where, setup started at a home base, meaning, with my kid's father and, with, certain family members, and then them collaborating with people that I'd met in LA.